So I had a bunch of heart failure related symptoms over the years, and I chalked them all up to being a bigger guy. I'm like, oh, I'm winded because I'm big. Oh, I get sick, running because I'm big. I was getting queasy, throwing up a couple times a week training. I was just because I was training so hard, but really it was because my body couldn't keep up. And so they got in, fixed that up. I ended up reversing my heart failure a lot with herbs and stuff like that because the medication only brought me up to like 35-40% ejection fraction. So still stage 1.
So what was the lowest ejection fraction, which I got, and maybe we
You ready for this one?
Yeah, please don't scare me. Welcome to the Protecting Your Nest podcast. As we start the new year, many people are making their New Year's resolutions, and one of the most popular is getting fit, of course, followed by eating better and losing weight. Now, to be honest, when I wrote my Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes book, I used a New Year's resolution as my motivation. And because I've been successful completing my resolutions, I tend to favor using this approach. Now, for me and many of my patients, it's an opportunity to have a fresh start, which can provide the motivation to start working on a new goal. The E in my NEST acronym reminds us to focus on exercise, which can help in our desire to be more fit. But how should we approach exercise so that it's sustainable and so that we won't be making the same New Year's resolution next year? Today, I will introduce you to a guest who is an online fitness trainer. So together, we can probe his brain for the necessary tips we'll need to achieve our fitness-related goals. Today's guest is Cody Watkins. After surviving an emergency open heart surgery in 2018, Cody was able to transform his life by becoming a bodybuilder and winning a competition only 11 months after a life-threatening surgery. He is now helping others with a holistic approach to health and fitness and will do just that as a guest on the Protecting Your Nest podcast. And with that, my friend, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
It's all good. I was kind of bragging because I don't know if I was bragging, but I had my Chicago Bears shirt on. And my wife literally just handed it to me. She said, you know what? You're dealing with a guy that's got some muscles on his chest and he's a fitness guy. You need to look at least that you can act like you're an athlete.
Fake it till you make it.
That's right. Fake it till you make it. So it's all good. So thank you, man, for being here. And I spend a lot of time. My podcast deals a lot with nutrition. We lean low carb, although we're open to all dietary patterns. We're just trying to help people achieve metabolic health. I know you're kind of, meet people where they are attitude, which I do appreciate. But I wanted to, I just wanted to spend some time talking about that E, because I have this acronym, and E is important for exercise. And yes, we consider in the obesity space, exercise is a weight loss maintenance tool. We know it's also good for metabolic health, but people need to kind of understand it more. And that's why I wanted you to spend some time with us today. So once I found you, I said, let's bring this guy along so he can guide us a little bit. So let's get to know you a little bit first. Let's talk a little bit real briefly about, where you live, family dynamics, and is your family involved in helping teach this message?
No. I'm the black sheep of the family. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah, like my family, most of them have health problems. I think that was what was probably a big inspiration for me getting into it, since, I started getting into health, fitness, and all that 14, 15 years old after I kind of got my hands on losing some body fat, feeling a little bit more comfortable in my skin and all that. But, long story short, not diving into it too much, but my grandma was 400 pounds, dying of everything.
Wow.
And so she had, edema so bad it was splitting out her legs. I watched a good majority of my family basically eat themselves to death, alcohol-related deaths, all that. So I kind of went on the opposite side of the spectrum.
That's right.
And, the straight and narrow of health and fitness, I guess you could say. So that kind of drew me that way.
Yeah, that's understood. It is our life experiences that impact how we think. It may be the inspiration. And even as a dad, like my dad wasn't really involved in my life. And because he wasn't, it affected my desire to be a great dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's life experiences that can shape us. We just want to hold on to the ones that help us in a good way, not the ones that help us in a bad way. So
even in a negative experience, there's a positive outlook to it. Like when I had to get filleted open, there was nothing on paper that was like, yes, I'm so excited. They got to cut me open, put me back together, hope I live, all this stuff, right?
That's
And I
crazy.
remember going into it, and it's all in perception. So it's not one of those things that you want to say like, oh, thank God this happened to me. But at the same time, life is remarkably better after because you look at everything through a different light. And so
That's
there's
right.
a strong amount of appreciation that comes out like, oh my God, I survived this. Like, the days matter more, right, when you come out of it. So even though the situation itself sucked, I wouldn't take it back because the amount of positive I got out of it was irreplaceable.
Yeah. Even as I was kind of rushing to get to our conversation, right? My wife is very smart. She was like, "Hey, I know you're running a little late, but drive safely,
Yeah, yeah,
and I remember trying to call patients as I drove home sometimes, and their names and their phone number would be a piece of paper, but it's still distracting. So
yep,
although I could like talk through the car, I found that it wasn't a good idea. So now I try not to do that. In other words, your life experiences again help make you a better person and help you navigate life in a better way. So since you talked about filleting open your chest, which is crazy, let's talk a little bit about that experience for you.
yeah.
Like what happened and how did you then transition from that to being a bodybuilder only 11 months later?
Well, so I had competed in bodybuilding prior, but I was actually like 6 months out, or not 6 months, sorry, 6 weeks out from a bodybuilding show, and I was
Got
DEXA
you.
scanning, and I was down to 7% body fat. I'm like, this is gonna be easiest prep yet. I'm doing so good, and I just had hit legs that Sunday, and then I was doing in person training that Monday. And I remember I went in to train one of my clients, and I'm looking down at my little Fitbit, and my resting heart rate's like 105. I'm like,
Mm.
I'm just feeling a little off, right? So long story short, I end up in the ER, right? Resting heart rate 130, blood pressure is like 250 over blah, 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 blah. Well, I had a birth defect, bicuspid, almost unicuspid aortic valve
Oh, cool.
that had ruptured. And my heart was working so hard. My heart was almost 3 times the size it should be. But I didn't know any of this, right? So I had a bunch of heart failure related symptoms over the years, and I chalked them all up to being a bigger guy. I'm like, oh, I'm
Mm.
winded because I'm big. Oh, I get sick, running because I'm big. I was getting queasy, throwing up a couple times a week training. I was just because I was training so hard, but really it was because my body couldn't keep up.
Mm.
And so they got in, fixed that up. I ended up reversing my heart failure a lot with herbs and stuff like that because
Hmm.
the medication only brought me up to like 35-40% ejection fraction. So still stage
So
one.
what was the lowest ejection fraction which a guy and maybe we
You
should
ready for this one?
yeah, please don't scare me, but
Yeah.
what was
So
it?
I was 10 to 15% with 50% regurgitation.
I don't think I've ever seen it that low.
No, and this is the thing. So when they did one when I went in, I was still 55, but my heart was beating so hard it skewed. So the output was so high from the blood pressure being up and all that. I don't think it read correct. They did a trachea one 3 days later, and I was at 45%. But they didn't do any between that and the heart surgery, which was like 4 or 5 weeks later because it looked fine in the hospital. So I was still going in and training my in person clients. I just didn't lift because they
That's
told me I could walk,
insane.
but not uphill. And so I'm like, okay, you guys have to move your own weights, but I'll count the reps, right? Like we'll do this. So I would go train a couple clients, come back and nap because I was super tired. And I didn't realize it was that. That's the fact I was dying. I was watching all my blood markers get off. So my liver enzymes, my GFR was going down. Everything was going off. My hematocrit was up to like 58%, right? A
Mhm.
whole bunch of blood work getting skewed. And it wasn't until they cut me open that I realized how bad it was.
Right. Dude, I just looked up something that you'll be interested in if you hadn't seen it. So I see an article in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology. It was in 2003. It was entitled The Association of Left Ventricular Ejection Fraction, Mortality, and
Yep.
Cause of Death in Stable Outpatients with Heart Failure. And you weren't even stable. So
No.
check this out. Check this out. You won't believe this. So if your ejection fraction is 35 to 45%, you're in 37 months,
Yep.
25% are gone, dead. If it's between 26 and 35, in this study, it was 31% were dead. If it was between 16 and 25%, it was 41% were
Yep.
dead within 37 months. And then, of course, if it was less than 15%, which is kind of what they were reading for you,
Yep.
half those people, 51%, are gone.
Oh
So
yeah.
For those who don't believe this was a serious issue, it was a very serious issue. And the
Yeah, it
happy
was.
face guy in front of us wouldn't be here, at least about 50% chance. So, okay, so that gives us a little foundation of what you started with. And so let's just kind of look at this transformation that people are seeking in the new year. And the biggest problem is people are busy. Like I said, I was just rushing just to get to you after having a busy day at clinic, right?
Yeah,
And I'll be honest, one of the guys in the low carb community is Dr. Ben Bokikio, and I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, but he's basically a low carb guy that does he has a book called 15 Minutes to Success. He does like the bands, and he does the slow resistance training. So I
yeah,
do 15 to 20 minutes twice a week. Literally, that's all I do. I walk, I stretch. So my question for you is, when you have busy people out there, right? How do you transform your body with the least amount of time involved?
yeah. Well, that's the name of the game with any of it, right? So even if I have somebody that says I have all the time in the world, I
Right.
want the least amount of effort
That's right.
for the most amount of results. I don't care if they want to spend days and days in the gym, but you got to prioritize what the goal is and what they're looking for, and then the
Mhm.
time they have available. And
Right.
then you build the programs to fit that. It's not
Okay.
trying to fit you to some cookie cutter program. It's trying to fit a program to you and your lifestyle. So, for instance, if you know you have 2 nights a week and that's all you can do, instead of fretting about it, thinking, why can't I do 4, 5, or 6?
Mhm.
Let's maximize what we can do in those two. And so,
Right.
worst case scenario, maybe it takes us 4 months to get in shape instead of 2 or 3 if we could train more. But with nutrition being our biggest lever, that's what we pull first. And the other
Right.
stuff just kind of scoots it along the path.
Got you. Okay, that helps a lot. So, I think that gives people hope to know that, okay, 2 or 3 times a week, you can actually get away with that. And what I like about that for me personally, besides having more time, is that I have time for my body to heal, recover, grow, and feed it that excellent nutrition. Which, and again, with that protein that we talked about, we did a video short, guys, and we talked about some of the ways to achieve your goals, and one of them was protein. So, and I guess because I have an older population, I have a lot of seniors, and again, they can be a little intimidated when they see their trainer looks like a guy like you who
Yeah.
has, a nice body. So when you're dealing with older patients, how do you approach that similarly, or do you have a very, you kind of meet them where they are and just kind of ease them into it, I guess, appropriate for their age?
Yeah, I mean, you have to meet people where they're at on any plane, but I don't like people being paralyzed by the age number.
Right.
So if I get someone up there that's 60 and they're pretty vibrant, I'm going to push them just like I would a 30-year-old.
Hmm.
But if
Got
I get someone who's 60 and they're a little moving a little
right.
decrepitly, right? We're,
That's
we're not
right.
getting under the biggest weight possible off the gate, right? We got to break that rust off. The biggest thing you'll see with age is the fact that we've lost so much muscle over the years through sarcopenia. So if we don't have that muscle loss or we can reverse it, that's essentially an anti-aging process, right? So my
Hmm.
goal is to not treat them like someone who's in like the older population. I have to build them up. But once you get that conditioning up, it's like the fountain of youth on. And
Mm,
so it's
okay.
not about going like, max deadlifts, max squats, max bench press, focusing on fundamentals and movements that can actually translate to areas of their life, but doing it with at least some intensity to dial that stuff in. And once you get all that locked in, man, the bodies are more cooperative than you could imagine, regardless of age. It's usually the joints that tend to limit things as
Hmm.
age because life has wrecked them, unfortunately.
Right.
And
Right.
so those are usually the biggest issues I see with the aging community.
All right, cool. Another thing that I share with my patients because of things like sarcopenia, when you're losing muscle, is the importance of protein. I mentioned we talked about protein in the video short a little bit, but I think it would be nice to just for a moment help people understand, why is protein so important, and what have you seen in your experience?
Yeah. So number one, if especially coming in the new years, you're saying everyone's looking for fat loss, we're looking for body
That's right.
composition. Well, the easiest way to diet is when you don't feel hungry. So protein
Hmm.
increases satiety more than carbs or fat could ever dream of. So if you just focus on eating protein and protein first, right? So you could have your fat and your carbs that you're eating with that meal, But if you focus just on putting the protein down first, you would automatically eat less of the other food on your plate. So now it's like
That's right.
automatic dieting. Then we go, okay, problem number two we're solving. We got to have the ability to build muscle. And for that, we need the right amino acids. And so we
Mm-hmm.
have to have that complete protein in order to do so. And then we move on to the third. And so now this is from the calorie burn perspective too. Protein takes so much more energy to digest. It's 20 to 30% energy versus 2 to 5% digesting carbs or fat. So if we can get Stairmaster burning calories without lifting a finger, it doesn't matter what population you're in, you're going to get in shape a whole lot quicker just by gravitating the nutrition to that versus your other macros like fats and carbohydrates.
That's
And
right.
you've seen the study on the kids they fed, right?
Yes.
With the eggs and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so satiety is just, it's a crazy amount
You
different
got
from
it.
any of the carbs, like 50 to
Yeah.
70% difference.
It's huge. And even like I wrote articles for the Diet Doctor, which is a low carb site, and they now have Hava, HAVA.co, and they're into high satiety foods, which will then, because there's some plants that are high satiety, make you feel full. There's some obviously protein, animal protein, but I think it's important that we help people deal with what's one of the biggest barriers to being successful, which is they're hungry. So if you
Yep.
can solve that problem, and I tell my patients all the time, eat the protein first, eat like half the ribeye first, and
Yep.
then we can start talking about the broccoli to follow. So I
Yeah.
think that's really important. So I like that approach. So let's now I want to ask you another quick question about, you mentioned in our video short that lean body mass was important, right? In terms of deciding how much protein to consume. And so, just real quick, mention again how much protein to consume. How do we estimate lean body mass? I have a little fancy scale where you can hold on to it and it'll tell me. But for most people, they may not have that. So, what do you tell people so they can then estimate how much protein they should be consuming?
Yeah. So, I mean, a general rule of thumb is going to be 1 gram per pound of body weight. Now, if you're an individual who's a little bit bigger as far as body weight goes, pushing 250, 300 or more,
Yeah.
there's a good chance you don't need that much protein. Now,
Mm-hmm.
from that standpoint, it's not going to hurt you to have more, right? Provided your kidneys are functioning properly and all
That's right.
that. But at least 1 gram per pound if you're in the normal weight realm. If you're a little bit higher, shoot for 1 gram per the pound of goal weight that you would be shooting. So if you're 300 pounds, you want to be 200, at least 200 grams would be the goal I would put on you.
That'll work. Okay. So this podcast tends to be low carb, keto, carnivore. However, in my clinical practice, I see vegans,
Yeah.
I see carnivores, and I meet people where they are, right? So when you think about your online training and you have somebody that comes to you with a certain dietary pattern, and we try to honor that, what's been your experience with trying to, help them achieve their goal?
Yeah.
Without them going too far off their dietary pattern if it's different from what you normally would recommend?
Well, the only one that I don't really jive with is vegan.
Okay, fair.
So I actually I was originally a keto warrior. That was my first diets I
Well,
ran.
that's my wife, yep.
But
I'm a carnivore and my wife's a ketovore, so
I see that wasn't around back when I started, right? That was
right, that's true.
more for the keto. So,
Right,
but
right, right.
I would do, because from a functionality standpoint, from bodybuilding stuff like that, you can't do keto and bodybuild. There'll be people out there that say you can. I will say they're not wrong, but it won't be well,
It won't be as
because you're not going
optimal.
to have that glycogen, the fullness in the muscles, because
Sure.
you're avoiding the very source of glycogen itself. So from that's where you can do modified versions like a TKD or a CKD, so targeted ketogenic diet, or
Mm-hmm.
a cyclic ketogenic diet. So you're injecting carbs at the right point to fill the muscle, keep the metabolism blazing, but you're still in a state of ketosis 80, 85% of the week to maximize fat burn. So that's kind of like a hybrid. But to go back to your question, I will play people where they're at as long as I know I can get them to the goal and it's not holding them back, or it's going to cause a wicked reversal when they're done. So if, like, say you just came to me and you're like, I'm carnivore. Well, you started a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And your whole family's over there eating rice, pasta, everything else. I'm probably going to have a talk with you about how this might not be sustainable, because you're fighting you're fighting the course of your entire house to
Hmm.
do so, right? Whereas maybe something where it's hybrid, where you're like, okay, cool, I can have a scoop of potatoes because my whole house is eating it and I don't want to hate them for it, right? Something like that. But realistically, the only diet that I really feel hinders people is vegan from that standpoint, because you're
Hmm.
doing so many supplementations to fill in the nutritional deficit.
Hmm.
You can't get the heme iron that you need from red meats and stuff like that. Plant iron doesn't absorb the same. There's nutritional deficits that I don't feel are worth the potential
Hmm.
health benefits that you might see from it.
Yeah, and I kind of think it's a spectrum. One of the people who Professor Tim Noakes in South Africa, he actually was kind of a well-known marathoner, and he would he was doing the extreme of carb loading before he would run, etc. And he found that he was starting to have issues with being borderline for diabetes, and I think that's kind of what got him to change his methodology. So when I talk to patients, I say, what are you trying to achieve? Are you on the spectrum of being this athlete versus trying to be healthy versus? And I think those are the types of decisions people have to keep in mind. Are you metabolically healthy or aren't you? If you're taking insulin for diabetes, you have to use more caution with the carbs versus if you're not. So I think that's what I like about meeting people where they are. Let's come up with a plan that'll suit their needs, where they're achieving their physical needs, but they're also maintaining their metabolic health. And I think that's really important. I do also have caution. Even though I have vegans, but they're not necessarily trying to build muscle; they're just
Yeah,
trying to be healthy,
yeah,
and but they all need to be educated about the things they may be deficient in. We'll measure some of those things, and we'll certainly recommend a supplement. So I do think it's more challenging, and it is. But again, I try to I always ask people, so tell me why, and if they say something that I has been debunked already, like it's saturated fat issue, et cetera, then
yeah,
I'll give them education. Now, if they say I can't kill I can't eat an animal
yeah.
because
You're not changing that one. You
no,
just
we're not right. So then we'll decide on the supplements, and then we'll maybe our goals of achieving the muscle is going to be a little different. And just like you said earlier, which I think is a good message, is like it may take longer. So I think I think we have to learn to meet people where they are, and if we do that, that's going to be really helpful. So now, one of the things that I heard you talk about, which I want you to speak of. You said something about stacking. I want you to talk about what the heck is that and explain it to my audience.
Yeah, like habit stacking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when people approach any kind of fitness regime, weight loss regime, whatever, they tend to try to do it all at once. And that all or nothing mentality, I did that, right? I did that for years, and it only works if you're willing to sacrifice everything else in between. But you
Mm,
don't realize what you lose in the wake of your destruction, right?
that's
So you
right.
might get the goal, but you destroy relationships and everything else in your path to get it. Not necessarily worth it. So with habit stacking, it's for those people that don't necessarily have that ability to just hyper focus and get everything. So what you do is you build it one step at a time. So if there was
Mhm.
12 habits I had to teach you to get perfect results, I wouldn't come over with all 12 habits and go, "Hey, here you go." You're looking at it like, how do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
So I got to go, okay, what is the easiest habit to teach him? Oh, let's get more movement in.
Mhm.
You're like,
Yep.
well, that's easy. I can do more. I'm like, cool. Let's get this in for a week and see what you do. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, but I can do more. Cool. Yeah, let's get this in for a week and see what you do.
Yeah.
Okay, water. Okay, protein. Okay, cool. Let's get to the gym. Not 5 days a week, but let's just walk through the door. Let's just get there one time. And
Okay.
then before we know it, you're an automated machine. I mean, really, we're only focusing with about 5% conscious effort a day.
Mhm.
If we get that subconscious laying out the path we want, golden. Nobody listen to the show. No, no, I'm talking to you. You don't get up in the morning and have to think, I better brush my teeth, right? You just get up and do
Just
it.
do it. That's
You know,
right.
'cause you're so afraid of having like dog breath walking out that like patience and stuff. Like, yeah, I gotta brush my teeth. Same thing, right? When you can turn your fitness into an automated habit where it's like brushing your teeth,
That's right.
you're unstoppable.
Then you're unstoppable. So habit stacking, I love that. It's actually a great concept for the new year, just to give people a little grace and say, "Hey, you can do this, but take it down a notch. Let's ease into this." So, again, perfect for my more senior patients. A lot of my patients, not necessarily the seniors, but the young ladies especially, they want to get that fat. They want to get rid of that belly fat, and they're working on that, and they'll do anything to do that. The problem is you have these new drugs like Ozempic and others that will you lose muscle and fat, which is a
Yep.
problem, right? So I
Yep.
guess my question is, so when you think about us trying to lose fat and not lose muscle at the same time, any tips on making sure we don't lose too much muscle? Anything to mitigate that?
Yeah. So the main thing with muscle loss, you got to take your body back. I know we're super civilized and we're not animals, but our body has animal functions. So
Hmm.
it knows survive, and that's it.
That's
So
it.
if, from a survival aspect, muscle's terrible. It burns calories at rest. And so if we start overly restricting calories, our body is thinking of any possible reason to dump muscle. So from
Mm,
a caloric standpoint, right, and it's more spitballing, but muscle's around 600 calories per
mhm,
pound, fat's 3,500.
mm,
So that same calorie deficit can dump you 5 pounds of fat, or 5 pounds of muscle, excuse me, or 1 pound of fat.
mm,
So with this being said, rapid weight loss is your nemesis.
mm.
If I have a client going over 2 pounds a week, now granted, if you're starting keto, right, you're going to dump a bunch of
Right,
water.
right. It's gonna
Don't
be
panic
water.
week 1 or 2,
That's
right?
right.
But
That's right.
past that, if I see over 2 pounds a week, unless they are a very large human starting out and they have more fat to lose,
Mhm,
their body's not getting rid of that from just body fat. And there's a high likelihood it's coming from muscle. So you have to have proper nutrition and proper stimulus, or your body will get rid of every ounce of muscle you have. So, from a proper stimulus standpoint, this can be any form of training that is relative to the muscle you have. Meaning, if you're doing training with bands right now,
mhm.
that's what is required to have that level of muscle.
Right.
You're not going to have muscle my level if I'm over there lifting 300 or 400 pounds.
Right, right.
But if you're telling your body, I still need to move 50 pounds of band resistance while you're dieting, you give it enough protein and enough nutrition, and you slow the rate of weight loss down, and you
Mm,
monitor and make sure that strength's not dipping, you will hang on to most, if not all, of that muscle through your dieting process. If you get greedy on the scale, expect to end up looking similar, almost like skinny fat, right? You lose
mhm.
15, 20 pounds, but you don't look any more toned or defined for it. So now you've nuked your metabolism. The minute you go back to normal eating, you burn less. So now you gain weight even quicker. And this is where you see that cyclic effect of chronic dieting because of that muscle loss. So muscle needs to be prioritized above and beyond the fat loss aspect
That's right.
of a nutrition plan.
That'll work. Okay. So, again, I'm looking at you and, I'm thinking about rather a person has your body type or another, you know, people wanna maintain a ripped body, for lack of better words, if they achieve it, right? But you hear stories, about and I know you're not bodybuilding now, right?
No, this is me in boring maintenance. So
Oh,
maintenance is
okay, cool. Maintenance, okay, alright.
yes.
Right, right. So, okay, cool. So you hear stories about bodybuilders who their life expectancy is shorter, and I want you to speak a little bit about that and just any pros of or cons of maintaining a body that's very muscular.
Yeah, so you got to look at it like outside the realm of supplementation and all that. If you just look at bodybuilding for what it is, you're a bigger, metabolically enhanced human.
Right.
Okay. So, from that aspect, that is going to increase cellular aging. There is
Mm,
nothing about putting on a massive, above normal amount of muscle that says, hey, I want to live forever. It applies to being fat too, right? It doesn't matter. Bigger doesn't get you, like if you're working around elderly people, if you go in the nursing home and there's a bunch of 80 or 90-year-old people, you don't see very big 80,
mm-mm.
90-year-old
You
people,
don't.
muscle or fat, because your life expectancy as you get bigger usually doesn't go up. So more petite people are going to live longer. So with that in mind, it is what you want to do with the goal. Like a normal person level of muscle mass is not going to decrease your life expectancy. So don't avoid the weights because you're like,
Right, right, right,
I
right.
want
Don't
to
get
live
crazy.
longer, right? So I got to get rid of these. But pushing size to like where I'm at or beyond, I can't picture that extending someone's time horizon, right? So maybe in a perfect world, right, I make it to 79, maybe with muscle, I'm 75 to 76.
That's
If you
right.
enjoy life more than your time you got, hey, cool, good for you, as long as the quality of what you have is good. But just know there's a detriment to pushing
That's
the
right.
extreme on anything.
Don't go too crazy. Okay. So that helps. Another thing you mentioned earlier was, if you're going to maintain, you kind of suggested if you're going to maintain muscle, you can't just like, you can't just not eat, right? So that makes me think about fasting. Many people who follow me are intermittent fasters. And so there's got to be some pros and cons. A lot of them are doing it because of longevity,
Yeah.
or they just don't get hungry eating this way because they eat a lot of that protein you mentioned earlier. So I think they need to hear some pros and cons of
Yeah.
fasting when it
So,
comes to muscle.
well, with the pros, I won't have a big list for this. So I'm not a huge advocate of
Yeah,
fasting
yeah.
when it comes to body composition. Now, I'm not knocking the health
The
benefits as
other
far as
benefits,
digestion
sure,
and all that. But when
sure,
we're
sure.
strictly talking body comp,
That's right.
I have not seen a single person that has better results fasting than not when it comes to this. Now, I'm not going to say, because obviously in the world of social media, there is some very well-known people that promote fasting that are shredded, ripped, and
Right,
large.
of course, of course.
I can assure you that some of these people I have been on a bodybuilding stage with, and they were not fasting to get that level of muscle into the
Right. I
back.
hear you. I
So
hear you. I
going
hear
to
you.
the maintenance, right? Like, yes, you can maintain easier with it, but the problems you see from somebody trying to get there. So I owned a DEXA scan machine for almost 4 years. So I've scanned over 1,000 people, and every single person that I would scan that did prolonged series of fasting lost a massive amount of muscle and minimum amounts of body fat. So
Okay.
I had two brothers, for instance. They did a week long fast for religious purposes, but we wanted to see where the data came in, right? So we're like,
Right.
hey, let's test it before and after just to see where it comes in. So the one guy who wasn't working out, he lost 17 pounds total, 15 pounds of muscle, 2 pounds of fat. The guy who was working out lost 19 pounds with 16 pounds of fat, 3 pounds of muscle loss.
Hmm.
So realistically, both of them actually increased their body fat percentage because they had lost so much, or excuse me, not the fat loss, sorry, the other way around. Fat loss was 13 pounds and then 3 of muscle. So,
Okay.
or muscle loss was 13 muscle, excuse me, 3 pounds of fat. So the amount of fat they lost was so significant, or amount of muscle they lost was so significant, their percentage of body fat actually went up. So if you were chasing it from a body composition standpoint, the first thing that your body gets rid of under duress is muscle. So if you're telling your body, I don't have nutrition, it's not going to tap into this. So think of it logically like a human. You don't tap into your savings account until the
Hmm.
checking's running low. Your body's the same way. So if you think of body fat like a savings account, your body doesn't want to get a dime spent out of that unless it has to. So it's going, well, I got all this muscle to spare in the checking. Let's just get rid of this. Like,
Hmm.
it's already there, but it's painful to pull it out of storage. So your body's the same way. And so fasting does not usually do people favors because the window to get the protein in becomes so low. It's very challenging to get those nutrients up without going way too low on a deficit and dumping a boatload of muscle.
Cool. Another thing that when I hear deficit, I think about how I was trained, calories in, calories out. And when I took my obesity training, we talked a lot about, you know, calories, the law of thermodynamics, right? And a lot of people say, well, are calories that important? And I would say yes and no. Like it's important, but there's so many things that happen that deal with your weight loss. It's the hormones, it's the microbiome. I mean, we can talk about the list of things. So that's why you don't want to keep it too simple. But I do want to hear your perspective on why, you know, should we think about calories as we're trying to achieve our fitness goals? In my world, people focus on carbs more than anything, but should they also focus on calories?
Yeah. And so with that, I would say yes, if the results you're getting from just monitoring the carbs are not where you want them to be, because you can
Yeah,
still
yeah.
eat too much fat and protein at the end of the
Right,
day.
right. There you
And
go.
that's where you'd have to go a level deeper, but we want to only go the level you need
That's
to
right.
get the results. So if your boss was like, hey, you want to work 20 hours this week? I'll pay you for 40. You'll be like, yep, sounds good to me. But if he's like, hey, do you want to work 40? I'll pay you for 20. You're like, no, I'm going to pass on that shift. So think of it the same way, but calories are important. But like you said, there's other mechanisms that kind of go crazy
Too many.
when you're dieting.
That's
But
right.
as a base, like if you're someone just starting out, I don't think there's a better measurable to watch, because when it comes to like
Mm,
gut diet, you're going to have to send a fecal stool matter or sample out to get that tested and see what your gut flora actually is. If you want to get in depth with that, you have mental components. You've got to get blood drawn for hormones. Really, the easiest thing that you have control over is what goes in your mouth and what you assume your burn is,
That's
and then
right.
you can play it by ear off of that.
That's right. And I just wanted to put that out there because what gets us in troubles are these extremes of thinking. We have to be nuanced and we, again, have to look at the individual in front of us and do what's best for them. But I tend to think about calories like you suggested when they're struggling. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on? It seems like you're doing that part. So, okay, let's talk more about what you're eating. And maybe you're eating too much. And yes, there's a point when there's too many calories as well. So, and you should have been full, but you weren't. And you kept eating it. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, so let's talk. So I do resistance training because I use Dr. Ben Bokikio's approach, which is the bands and things like that. So, why is resistance training important compared to like cardio? Because a lot of people, when I always see people at the gym. And I always see the larger people on the treadmill. I just do. I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but and then I see the people who are more fit, at least from what I can tell by the weight. So why is that important? Why is there a difference there?
Well, I think the difference of why you see them like that is what they're doing and its delivery on what it's the result is. So
Mm.
people on the weights usually look more fit because they are. Also, the problem is people get really intimidated by the gym.
Mm.
And so it's, with YouTube and everything, nobody wants to be on like a YouTube's fails thing and like
Right.
doing something like you're like, I don't want to be that guy. So I don't know what I'm doing. So no one can screw up walking. I got this down, right? I'm going to go walk here.
That's right.
And
That's right.
so really they can walk anywhere, can ride a bike anywhere. If you're going to the gym, I would be much more inclined to put you on the weights to see more results out of it. The reason that you're maybe not comfortable with that is because you lack the knowledge of that. So there's tons of free resources out there that can give you some guides on that. But from what I've seen, been in the gym many, many years, it's not very often that you see people actually getting made fun of while they're working out, right? And I have a different mindset when it comes to this. I have seen more 3, 4, 500 pound people get praised for working out than I
Mm.
ever have get scolded. Not saying
Nice.
that there might be a few little turds up there, right, that might
Right. Right.
give
Right.
you some grief, but few and far between. Those ones would probably do it in a grocery store too, right? It would be
That's
no different.
fair. That's
But
fair.
when it comes to that, the weights are going to give you such a bigger benefit. So if it's something you're not comfortable with, figure out how to get comfortable with that because you're going to see a huge response in metabolic rate increase from that. You're going to feel better. You're going to have the muscle mass to carry your body better, moving better. If you are looking for cardiovascular, if you think you're not going to breathe hard lifting weights, try them. Trust me, it'll work.
Right.
You will get that cardiovascular benefit of that.
That's right. One of the things that has helped many of my patients is having a little coaching. And I know what you share is kind of an online trainer kind of approach, right? So I just want to be able to visualize what that looks like. So if somebody were to take advantage of what you offer online, what does that look like in terms of how how is that presented to the public? How often do they interact with you? And just give me a visual of what that would look like if somebody was interested in that
Yeah.
support.
So we are very open on communication. So I would say communication is more like daily. I try not to smother them,
Right.
but at the same time, I like to have the line open, right? So I don't be like, oh God, this guy won't leave me alone. But I like to
Okay.
know the communication's open, and that's key. Now, where the biggest movers are on any kind of fitness type program, it's actually the nutrition. So that's
Hmm.
going to be 90% of our results.
Cool.
We want to spend the focus there, teaching our clients, making sure they know how to log food, know how to adjust food. So if they have family dinners, right, we don't have 3 different meals going down for mom, dad, and kid,
Right.
because that's not going to be sustainable. And once we get that lifestyle approach in where it fits like a glove, cool. Now we're getting results from the weight training aspect, right? We'll interact with them, and we have our own custom app and all that. So we have video links to all the exercises and stuff. So
Hmm.
nobody goes up there blind, but it gives them the structure they need when it comes down to it. And if we need to, we can always get on Zoom with them or they can record any form issues that they think they have. most people are not near as bad at working out as they actually think they are, right? Well,
Right, right,
let's say watch a video, it's kind of monkey see, monkey do. You're like, okay,
right.
I don't think I can screw this up too bad. Let me do this. So I don't worry about it too much from that perspective. But then accountability is huge, right? So the more touch points we have, the more communication we can have with clients. That's where we deliver the results with it. So when we set everything up like this, we have a 90% success rate with clients. It works out really well. There's 10% I'm still trying to figure out how to fix them. I haven't cracked that one yet, but the other 90 I'm doing pretty good with. So
That's good. Yeah. And if you do 100%, then we need to call Joe Rogan or
I
somebody.
need to pick up the clients is what I need to pick.
Yeah, that's crazy. So that's amazing. So yeah, I think you're doing pretty good because there's so many factors beyond the scope of what you can offer
Yeah.
that impact people's lives. Just like going back to that life experience comment. So I appreciate that. A couple of other quick things I think about when I was I did my most weight training type activities in medical school. That was kind of like what we did to kind of relax. And shout out to my fraternity brother, uh, Dr. Pete Thomas, who we were looking pretty. I was about 20 or 30 pounds heavier, and
Yeah.
my wife remember those days. I said, I'm
Yeah.
not doing
That's how you landed
that.
her.
So, but we did sometimes have pre and post workout things we would consume. And I know protein's important. I know people struggle to get it all in. So you have a philosophy about whether or not they should use a protein supplement before or after workout?
So in relation to the workout time, I don't think it's near as important. And I'll side quest that when it's done. Protein amount, think of total for the day
Yeah.
above and beyond anything.
Yeah.
Now, there was a study that recently came out that was very interesting, showing no upper limit to ability to synthesize protein post workout. So they went up to 100
Wow.
grams in the study case with protein synthesis just continuing to climb.
Wow.
So who knows how high it can actually go? Meaning, if you're someone who's struggling to get your protein in throughout the day, maybe doing a 75, 100-gram shake when you're done, because it's been proven to absorb and
That's
facilitate
right.
that at
That's
that
right.
time would be good. But I actually have no issues with the shakes. Myself, I'll do 5 or 6 shakes a day.
Wow.
I only like eating 2 meals a day, because when you come from bodybuilding, you have to eat so much food.
That's right. That's
Food's
right.
not even enjoyable at this point. I could eat junk food 7 days a week and I still wouldn't get out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to eat the food volume that some people might want to, right? So I
That's
do
right.
lunch, dinner is like actual meals, and everything else I just drink as liquid to get the protein amounts I need. And it's super easy. I don't have to spend time chewing chicken all
That's
day,
right. That's right.
right? 15 seconds and it's done, versus like, oh, I got to sit here and eat 20 or 30 minutes total, and all that stuff.
That's cool. I love that. I tell my patients definitely hit the protein. Just be careful. Look at the labels. Make sure it's not gonna spike your sugars if they're dealing with that kind of stuff. So I think that's
Well,
that's a
and I think
great
a
thing.
side quest for anyone listening, the only downside to it that I see to multiple shakes a day is they are not filling. So if you're someone who's hungry, go food first.
Right.
If you're
Right.
someone who needs convenience, if
Right.
you're working 12-hour
That's a great
shifts in the
point.
hospital, they're not going to give you, oh, you need to eat your chicken. Feel free to sit here 30. I'm just going to bleed out. Don't worry, right? No, you might have time to take a quick bathroom break
That's
and
right.
it's not a protein, but you're not going to be able to sit and have those meals. So those are case in point where it works
That's
well.
right. That's right.
If you're someone with time to eat and you're hungry, please eat the food first.
That's right. The food is always the first option. I also have seen that, particularly my younger patients, if they're and they can mitigate this by drinking fluid, but I'll see sometimes you'll see their kidney function being impacted a little bit because so you have to
Yeah.
you got to hydrate. You got to make sure you get that in, and sometimes they're not really doing that enough. So I like that as well. Another thing that speaking of the new year, how we celebrate the new year, alcohol, right? So when you
Yeah.
think about alcohol, I know there's the oxidative principle, which basically says alcohol is a toxin and you're going to stop metabolizing everything until you deal with the alcohol. And that could then impact your ability to lose fat, et cetera. But what's been your experience as you've worked with clients who they want to have a little Chardonnay every day? So how do you manage that?
So I'm actually on the opposite school of thought. So when it comes to me, I like to maximize results, and there's nothing that will sabotage that quicker than alcohol. And
Mm,
so it's hard to remove because some people are kind of closet addicts and don't realize they are. Like if you're drinking 7 days a week, there's a likelihood that you have a slight inclination to be an addict because you can't even take one of those days off in a week, right? So there might be some subtle habits you have to undo, but from a metabolic standpoint, if you're at the body you want, probably not going to be an issue. But
Mm.
if you are trying to reach a body, if you're pausing fat loss through the mechanism you just mentioned
Hmm.
multiple times a week, you literally cannot burn body fat while you're processing that out. So that
Mm.
becomes the problem. The other problem is if you look up any study data, the average person will eat 500 to 1,000 calories more while consuming alcohol. So now you mix, like, I think I was eating healthy, but you're like, think when you go out, you're not ordering, hey, I'd like a side salad. You're like, cheesy fries, right? You're like, it's the greasy good food that's coming in. And so people always overeat at a time they can't burn it. Then we
Hmm.
mix the third combo in there. And you coming from medical land, you should appreciate this to some degree, but think like you get a wound, you clean it with alcohol.
Yep.
Well, if we're constantly putting alcohol into an area that's supposed to be bacteria, gut, flora, all this,
Right.
what is it doing to our health from that
That's right.
standpoint?
That's right.
So everyone knows alcohol initially makes you feel good, but then it's a depressant overall. Now, is it a depressant because it's wrecking our gut flora and it's through that mechanism, or is it from the alcohol itself, or a combination? I don't know for sure, but I know it doesn't help those things. So the more we can reduce or eliminate, the better our results are going to be. If it's something they have to have, it's getting the proper eating strategies in. So we're not going crazy with the carbs at a time that we're really not processing carbohydrates that
Hmm.
great
Hmm.
and all that would be a way you could mitigate it. But again, same thing. Maybe it would take us, a month to get 8 pounds off if you were dialed.
Hmm.
Maybe you like to drink and now we only get 4 off a month. Cool. If you're cool taking your results a little bit slower, as long as we're still heading towards the goal, zero issues. But if it's holding you back, yeah, we'll sit down and have a chat about, hey, let's get a strategy in where we could
That's
get this
right.
moving to where you
That's
actually want to
right.
be.
And that's the beauty of working with someone is that you can look at a problem that comes up. You can work together to solve it. Somebody with more experience may be able to see an answer that you couldn't see, and then you can and then you act on that. What you think is that's a hypothesis. If I do this, A equals B, the outcome will be whatever. But so you can practice it. But it's just nice to work with somebody. So again, having a coach is so important. I'm hearing from our conversation the importance of nutrition, which is right up my alley. I'm also hearing that resistance training is important. Where does cardio fit in this big equation?
So cardio fits as the as needed, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is the component that we throw in. So I would actually put movement above cardio. So
Mm-hmm.
nutrition, then we go training, then we go movement,
Mm-hmm.
supplements, filling in nutritional gaps, anything like that. Then we would go cardio. This isn't my favorite lever to pull because usually the benefit is so low compared to
Mm-hmm.
the others. Now, some people, if you want to speed your results up, maybe we need to crank it. But realistically, if we're getting the results we need from those top ones, I won't even look at cardio. Now, from
Mm-hmm.
like a health perspective, you can say cardio is good for your heart, but also you can look up any data, and 8 to 10,000 steps a day gets us equal, if not better heart benefits than doing a 20-minute cardio session.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
even just getting that general movement in is going to help out overall with that. But cardio is a lever to pull when we've tapped out the weights, we've tapped out the nutrition, and we need to speed up the results. So we can use that as a term to crank that metabolism up a little bit higher, expend more. Just know, like, the more time you put into a program to get there, you have to back off it at the right direction so we don't get a rebound when you're done. Because if you just stopped when you're there, then you're on the fitness roller coaster, weights coming back. So we don't want to pull the lever from the cardio if we don't have to as much.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get that same or better response from nutrition, normal training, etc.
All right, cool. So here's the big picture questions. So when you look at the future for you personally and what you're trying to add to the world, do you have like a true north where you want to be, what you want to achieve, how you want to impact the world? What would that look like?
So when I was started out, I was doing in person training, and I love it. Right, there was it's all I knew. I was good
That's
at it.
right.
It was fun. But the problem you find doing it for years and years and years is you get tapped on time and ability to help more
Mm,
people.
that's right.
So I would get people that would message me online and they're like, "Man, can you help me?" Do you want to fly over here so I can count your reps? Like you just didn't do it. So when online training came out, my scope, who I could reach was just so much
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah.
So now it's like I've helped people in Africa, Australia,
Right.
Europe, all over the globe live their best life, especially after having the heart surgery. I got people that have that there's no hope for them, right?
That's
Like
right.
you get out
That's
there and
right.
doctors are like, I don't know, should you do this? And I'm like, hey man, it's a body. Like as long as it ain't gonna blow something out doing it, like let's see what it could do, right? It's not about surviving, it's about thriving.
That's right.
And so getting people that level. So my goal, I want to help as many people as I possibly can. And so
Hmm.
the online world has gave me the ability to enhance the amount of people that I can reach to actually achieve their goal, because it was sad, like doing in person, you couldn't help some of these people. Like, man, they needed your help.
That's
And you're
right.
like, man, if they were just here,
I
I
know.
could fix this. This wouldn't do it. And when you've seen, a good majority of your family basically like eat themselves to death, there's a little thing in me like I couldn't save them,
Right.
but maybe I can save this one,
That's
right?
right. That's
And
right.
when you can fix those problems, and when you give people their life back, it's not about the exercise, it's not about the nutrition, but like
Hmm.
I'll get people that we fix a digestive issue in 2 to 4 weeks that they've been dealing with for 8 years, and they're damn near in tears when they're on a call with me, because like they can finally sit at a restaurant without having to run to the bathroom. And
It's
people don't realize that kind of stuff's going on. And
That's right.
that quality of life, man, is like, if once I got the taste of like what it feels like to solve those problems, I'm like, all day, man. Let's.
Yeah.
I like working with the hard cases, man. If it's just easy fat loss, yeah, I'm good at it, right? But I like the ones going, okay, what's gonna make me think? How can I beat this, right? Whether it's mental, it's physical, whatever it is.
That's right.
If you think you're a challenging person, hey, just shoot me a message, because I would love to try
That's
to fix
right. That,
it.
that's awesome. I love that. And again, it resonates with me. And I'm like you, man. If I had a 90% success rate, that 10%, that still keeps me up at night,
Oh,
right?
it does. You're like, how can
Yeah.
I solve this? It's
Oh
rough.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it feels good. I had a patient just today who was just so emotional about her success, and she was emotional. She had, guide. She was dealing with diabetes and weight loss, and her A1C was like 10. It went down a normal 5 something. Then it went back up a little bit to 7, but she was still like, as she was working to get back on track, she was still like so emotional, saying, "Man, there's so many things I can do now
Yeah.
that I couldn't do." And one of the biggest barriers that she faced, and I don't know if that was just cultural, just the
Yeah.
African American female, was when I got too skinny, my family just started giving me a hard time.
Well, no, no, it's not cultural, right? This is, at least in the States, right?
Hmm.
Don't fool it with culture, as it's jealousy, right? And I do want to dive in on this, because
Okay.
your support group will only support you until you're better than them. And
Mm.
so the minute you cross that threshold, it now makes them feel uncomfortable. And now they have to attack you, because there's two ways to have the tallest building in the city.
Mm.
You can build yours the tallest, or you can destroy everyone else's and now have just a one story, and it's still the tallest building,
That's
but
right.
it doesn't mean it's like some spectacular tower. So choose your choose your social circle wisely while
Hmm.
you're on a fitness journey. If they don't align with you and they're not really truly in your corner, whether it's family, it's you might have to cut some ties for a little bit
Mm.
and let them do some self work, because don't let their need for self work affect your self worth.
Mm.
Because if you're getting better than someone and they feel they attack you for it, they're not someone that's got your best interest in mind.
Mm.
And your circle may get smaller, but it's not because you're getting worse. Like it's lonely on the top, right? There's a saying like that for a
That's right.
reason.
That's right.
So just note, if you're getting negativity, you're probably doing the right thing.
That's
So
right.
use that as a positive as much as you can moving forward.
Well, I'll make sure she at least hear this part of the
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah, yeah,
She'll hear this part, so thank you for that. And as we're kind of wrapping up, I want you to think about how you're going to protect your nest, and how do you protect it? You think about, we talked about nutrition and exercise, but the nest also has less stress, more sleep.
yeah.
It also has recovering from trauma, making sure our thoughts serve us, We
Yeah.
don't need self-limiting thinking. And then the rope to climb up to the nest talks about having healthy relationships. I know you mentioned your lovely wife. I haven't met her
Yeah.
yet, but I'm going
Yeah.
to call her a lovely wife. The R, avoiding organisms and pollutants that harm us, like that alcohol.
Yeah.
And then the E in the rope talks about making sure your life experiences serve you and protecting your emotions. So when you think about any of those concepts,
Yeah.
what do you think you want to focus on over the next 12 months?
See, I'm pretty solid on most of them. Just it's more sharpening the edge.
Yeah, I
Like
like that.
I feel like the knife it's pretty well formed,
That's right. That's
but
right.
I feel like it could be diamond sharp, right? Right now
That's
it
right.
might be pretty sharp, but I want that thing to cut skin right when it grazes me. And so I think as a whole, anywhere where I have room to improve, that's all I do, right? You can't see this wall in front of me, but it's all vision board, motivational. Like I got it all over,
That's
right?
right. You're
Yeah, turn
good.
it I don't have an off switch when it comes to this stuff, man. I
That's
self improvement, all that stuff. Yeah, I might
yeah.
drive my wife bananas with it at times because
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not someone
right.
who rests well, right? She's like, just let me read. And I'm like, oh, I gotta go. I'll keep going, you know. And so maybe my biggest thing I could do would be take a breather here and there, right
That's
between.
right. That's relax. Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. Sometimes pausing,
Yep,
reflecting is all good. And when my kids were little, and I mentioned this previously, but they on a previous episode, but we had them read the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, which many people who are successful have read. But that seventh principle is sharpening the saw. And so many people, man, they're walking around with rusty saws, and it's like, dude, if you want to chop the tree down, could you just
yep,
pause for a minute and sharpen
yep,
the saw? So I think that's okay to kind of say I've kind of achieved a lot of these things. Now I'm going to try to, make sure everything's nice and sharp. So I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, I
And I
used to
love
go
it.
at it from like an extreme angle, right? So like I
Yeah.
was very tunnel vision, and like I said earlier, and that's where I resonate with those very hyper focused people because that's what I do. And
Yeah.
I always seen it as 100% benefit because it was me, 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 me.
Hmm.
But when I seen when I was leaving, like my wife basically had like a robot husband for like 5 or 6 years, right? I didn't do a cheat meal. Everything was structured, scheduled,
Right.
da, 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 da,
Right.
da. And like that's not living, right?
No,
There's a
no.
balance between it. And so when I figured out, and I'm still not good at that part, right? But when I figured out like kind of how to do it, I was a little bit more human, right? Rather than like this fitness robot that just went through the motions.
That's what I'm talking about, man. I'm enjoying this conversation, although we're wrapping up, and let's wrap up with you sharing how people can get access to your resource and any other final thoughts you'd like to share with my audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a free resource on my website. He'll put the link in the description, or you can send me a DM on Instagram at Cody Watkins Fitness, Freedom 24. So if you send me that, I have a whole resource built out from my habit stacking, macros, nutrition. You're going to have a turnkey program on where to start
Hmm.
with your journey. This is something I don't give out. I've made it specifically for the podcast here. It's
Cool.
a great resource. It's the same exact stuff I use in the internal portion of my business to build stuff for our clients. So
Nice. Nice.
we're not cutting anything short when it comes to that. You might need some help digesting it all right. I try not to go too deep with it, but it does check all the boxes. But that's a great resource if you're someone just starting out. And you can find me at Cody Watkins Fitness on Facebook, Instagram. Instagram's I'm most active on. But the biggest thing I could say is just start,
Hmm.
just do something. And it doesn't even have to be the whole thing. Like if going to the gym is your limitation, maybe you just need to drive there and look at the doors. It sounds stupid, right? But
Hmm.
at least you made a little bit more effort to get in there than sitting at home saying, I'm going to go one day.
Mm.
It's one day or day one, right? What's it
That's
going to
right.
be? And
That's right.
sometimes you just got to take that first step. And the other thing that I would say will be the biggest takeaway on a fitness journey, get comfortable with uncomfortable.
Hmm.
The things that make you uncomfortable will pull you through these situations a lot more than the pleasure will. So if you have an outfit that you don't feel particularly comfortable wearing, or maybe it doesn't fit yet,
Hmm.
tack it on your wall. So
That's right.
every day you wake up, you see it. And now you're like, okay, because it's real easy to eat maybe some food you shouldn't. But if you think I got to fit in this little black dress and it's right on your wall, it's a lot easier to do.
I love it, man. I just appreciate you and thank you for, I haven't done a lot of episodes that focus on exercise, but I'm happy this is one of them because, again, I want to honor the entire acronym. All aspects are important. And in order for people to truly achieve their health, it's not just that one thing. You can't just change your diet and everything gets better. And sometimes it does a little bit, but there's these other things that we need to think about. And as we kind of struggle to achieve our goals, and struggle is normal, we need to just be thoughtful to not just focus on that one thing. So thank you so much, Cody Watkins in the house, for coming to the podcast, sharing your healing message. And I really look forward to the work you're going to be doing and helping other people, man. So thank you.
Man. It's been great.
All right. So guys, most of us understand that exercise is an important aspect of maintaining our healthy body. It's just a basic fact we all understand. So finding the motivation to honor this reality will be critical if we are to be successful. So as we wrap up today's episode, I want you to keep in mind just a few basic concepts. Number one, the key to get moving and finding a way to incorporate movement into your life is going to be really important. So movement can be walking the dog. It could be parking the car a little further away from the store entrance. That's going to be really critical. And Cody also reminded us, besides movement, drink water. You got to drink water and you got to eat more protein. So keep that in mind. Number two, make sure that as you increase your movement, think of some way of doing it fun. Like this summer, me and my wife are going to try to do more bike riding. That sounds like fun. And we may even, I was a tennis player, Cody. So I may get back on that tennis court and start doing that. That way.
As long as she don't beat
Right.
you.
Right. If she beat me, man, that's going to be amazing. So I'm going to see. If she beat me, man, I'll DM you right away and let you know. So we'll see.
Okay, yeah, I would have beat you, but I pulled it.
That's right. The third thing that comes to mind is, when you think about fun, having you can do this stuff virtually. Now, Cody is talking about having a virtual coach, but you can do that with him. You may have a family member that's going to start working out with you. Maybe you can have them, working out with you virtually. Technology is amazing. We were just on a call with me, my wife, my two boys. We're all kind of in different locations, and we were talking to each other, looking at each other. So anything's possible with technology. Take advantage of that. And the main thing is to, if you get off track, give yourself a little grace because you're human, and then you just get back on track. It's life, right? So I think Cody has messaged some of that. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to give yourself a little grace. So, and just always remember, we were made to move. And one of the things I've noticed in my patients, if they're not moving, being in the hospital for just a week, they need rehab, man. You know what I mean? So move. That's really one of the best ways to slow down the aging process, is to stay in motion. We're like machines, and if we don't take care of those machines and keep those machines moving, we will not do well. So I really hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Protecting Your Nest podcast, as we celebrated the E in the NEST acronym and focused on exercise. And hopefully today's discussion will help you get started on your exercise journey. And Cody, again, I thank you again for joining me. And for everybody who enjoyed this episode of the Protecting Your Nest podcast, continue to be safe, be well, and continue to protect your nest.